Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to Penguin Live TV. My name is Steven. I'm going to be your host this evening. I'll be controlling the cameras, trying to find all those wonderful penguins for you to see tonight. And joining me, I have the magnificent T.
Hello everybody, I'm Ranger T and I'll be checking on all of the questions on YouTube tonight and hopefully I'll get to answer some of them, but I will definitely try and answer some even on the camera as well. So have a fabulous night. Looking forward to seeing all of these cute little blue and white friends. Thank you.
That's right. So we're going to try and answer your questions tonight. Hopefully you'll be able to hear your questions asked aloud, and I'll try and answer them. And if we don't get to them, ask your questions on Facebook. We have a team of rangers who will be answering those questions within the next 24 hours. And I want to give a big shout out to all of the rangers who type out the responses to those questions. And a very big shout out to Sammy. It'll be her last night answering these questions. So big thank you to Sammy. You've been such a help, and we're going to miss you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, tonight, you may notice a bit of a change. We have some people on our stands, and it's a pretty special night. We are open to the public on the weekends, Fridays, Saturdays, and I believe Sundays, maybe just Fridays and Saturdays. And we have a few people who get to come see the Penguins live in person, but we get to see them on TV. We get to see them up close and personal with our cameras. Now, as we're watching the view across this beach, I do want to take this time to acknowledge the Bunurong as the traditional custodians of the land and pay my respects to their elders, both past, present, and emerging. And speaking of emerging, there's a few penguins down here that look like they just emerged from the water's edge. Wow, talk about timing. That's just fantastic. Now, it's still really bright outside, so I don't know if any of these penguins are going to cross the beach tonight. Let's try and zoom out. I've already lost them. They ran back into the ocean. They had a quick look around. They got frightened. Back into the water they go. That's very typical behavior for penguins who come out of the water a little bit too early. But they're hanging around. They're waiting for that sun to go down, and they're getting excited. They're going to be coming out of the ocean soon. Not quite now, but they're going to wait until they are ready. So let's keep an eye on these penguins, see if any of them come out. If not, we might find some penguins closer to our end of the beach. And speaking of penguins at the end of the beach, there's another raft way down here. I don't know if I can zoom in all the way. Our camera's struggling with the zoom at that distance, but you might be able to, oh, it's losing focus there. It's a little tricky to zoom that far away, but there's a few penguins just down there. You can see the real range of the penguins coming out of the ocean. So that's the very far end of the beach. Tonight we have Linda counting those penguins. And she's on that far stand over there in the orange jacket at the bottom of that stand. And we've got Rachel, who's counting the penguins here on this one path we saw in front of us, and all the way down this beach to this end as well. I'm just going to scan across, and I believe we might be lucky to see some penguins crossing down at Penguins Plus. There we go. There we are. Some penguins just came out of the water here. It's not a big group. We'll see how brave they are. But they're getting ready to come, which is really exciting. I think a group of them ran back into the ocean. These ones are looking around. They're not too certain just yet. They're not really taking a step to go. It's about 50-50 if they're going to cross right now. We'll see. If any start running back to the water, I bet you the rest are all going to run back to the water as well. There's safety enough. Oh, there goes one. Are the rest going to follow? No? They're toughing it out. A couple of penguins definitely want to go. It's a bit of excitement. When the penguins are timid in crossing the beach at the start of the night, you really get to see their behavior. One or two are going. They're a bit like lemmings. Once a few of them go, the rest tend to follow suit. Ooh, we got a few brave penguins. They're not going back into the ocean. They're really determined to get out of the ocean. They're looking back at their friends saying, come on, guys, don't be scared. Let's stick together. Let's go. But we'll see. Who knows if they're going to go across the beach right now. I think they're going to wait a little bit longer to make sure it's safe. I'm going to zoom out a little bit and see if I can get some more penguins. I saw some more penguins to the right of the screen as well. We'll see if any of these penguins are going to start crossing the beach. Thought I saw some in the waters over there. Nah, it's pretty exciting stuff. That's a bit far on that side. They really want to be aiming for a little pond up here. And they're going to be going up that little river that's in the bottom middle of the screen into the pond in the bottom right. Got a few heads sticking out of the crowd there. I'll try and get them out of the shot. I'm not sure they want to be on camera tonight, but these penguins, they sure do. But while we're waiting for the penguins, I do want to tell you a little bit about who we are. We are the Penguin Parade. We're part of the Phillip Island Nature Parks. We're a conservation, not-for-profit conservation organization. And we're here to help protect the home of the little penguins. And we do use tourism as a source to fund our conservation work. So all of the people that are coming here today, the money that they have spent on their tickets is going back into the penguin colony, back into conservation, and helping out not just our penguins, but all of the native species here on Phillip Island. And they're also taking care of some bushfire-affected koalas. You remember the stories about the Australian bushfires earlier this year in January, February. We have quite a few koalas at our koala conservation reserve under our care, getting healed up and soon to be ready to be released back into the wild once they've fully recovered. We also take care of several threatened species like the eastern barred bandicoots. We've had some teammates that have been doing a bit of research on the bandicoots the last few nights. I got a cute little plushie of a bandicoot right here. These guys are absolutely adorable. This is roughly the size of a bandicoot, even though it is a plushy toy. They're very cute. They're small, tiny marsupials. They have pouch young. They live fast and furious little lives. They only live to about 2 or 3 years of age. They don't live too long at all, but they're very cute. And they are critically endangered. In fact, they only just got taken off the extinct in the wild list. And that's because we released a few of these bandicoots here on Phillip Island, and they're breeding up out in nature, doing what they can. So pretty exciting. I believe at their lowest, they got down to roughly 20 adults left in the Melbourne Zoo. That was 20 adults left in the world, which is incredibly rare. That's critically endangered. So we're excited to see their numbers are growing here on Phillip Island. And that's just some of the excellent work we're doing here. And if you wanted to support us in our work, you can always click that link below, the Penguin Foundation. It's a link just below the video there. And that'll take you to a website to our charity organization where you can help to donate some money to help these penguins. And speaking of penguins, my goodness, there they are. Look at that size of penguins. That's massive. Now put a question. I'm going to ask you guys a question. How many penguins do you think are in this waddle of penguins? It's quite a few. There's so many, I don't think I can fit them all on the camera. Wow, poor Rachel's going to be trying to count those penguins. We're going to get her to radio us and let us know how many penguins are coming across in this first group. So Rachel has just gotten on the radio and she's just said that we've got a start to the count tonight at 7:57. So if you're looking at your clocks at back home, if you're especially in our area time zone, you'll notice that it's pretty live. And oh, I think, did you hear how many that was, T? She just put it on the radio. How many penguins in that first group? Wait, let's give it people a chance to answer on the comments. Rachel's a fast counter.
A couple of really close guesses.
There's a few close guesses. There's just a few seconds. Zoe's got 200. She's close.
She is very close.
That's the ballpark you want to aim for. A couple more seconds left to put in a guess. How many penguins do you think have crossed in this first group?
Everyone else is way off mark.
And I love these guys just climbing up through that waterfall there. They always try to stick to the water. Some of them are trying to swim up this absolute torrent of water going across these rocks. That is just fantastic. I haven't seen that before. That's a new experience even for me. That water's moving at a fair pace. We've had so much rain here. Luckily, the sky's cleared up for all of our guests, but these penguins are just braving those rapids. How fantastic. All right, how many penguins in that first group, T?
So the first group was 192.
192 penguins. How good is that? That's a nice first group to have. Now, I think that first group that was on the water's edge, it hung around, they weren't crossing. They just joined up into this larger group and got swept up in their numbers. And you can see the water's quite a bit higher than it was last night. This is our little diving board right here. And it's actually gone underwater a little bit. Wonderful.
So Stephen, just for everybody thinking that there is a lot of water there, we have actually had over 40 mils today.
Had over 40 mils of rain today, which for us is quite a lot. So yes, this place is a bit flooded. I'm going to do my best to try and keep these cameras into focus, but there's quite a few people here watching the penguins, so I might lose sight of them a little bit. Trying to make sure nobody gets into shot too much. Oh, there's a few penguins up here just playing around in the shallows. And then the top right of the screen, you can see a few penguins waddling their way home on the penguin highway. What are you doing in the water there? Your burrow's not there, buddy. You don't want to make a home in the flood zone. It's not a safe place. I don't think home insurance is going to cover their burrows in the flood zone. So it's a bit tricky to spot these penguins going up the hill. The grass has grown so tall, taller than our penguins, which is not saying much because our penguins are only 33 centimeters tall. But here in Australia, it is very hard to get a lot of rain. It's usually a drought-stricken country. We're a bit more humid down here on Phillip Island. We get a lot more rain. But this grass, usually in our summer months, turns brown because the lack of rain in our summer months means that there's not enough moisture for it to grow as tall. So hopefully this is the last we see of our really lush green grass, and it'll make it easier for us to watch our penguins in the area. All right, we got a nice view of our penguins going up the Penguin Highway. We got one of our guests just leaning over, having an excellent view of these penguins waddling right underneath their feet. We do want to invite all of you watching at home that when you can come back to see us, please come back. We do miss seeing your faces. And you'll have a wonderful view of these penguins going right underneath your feet, listening to all the magnificent sounds that they make. And our penguins are very vocal little birds. Once the sun goes down and once they feel safe, they really do put on a bit of a concert of noise. Now, they're not beautiful singers, our penguins. They have very interesting calls, but it's fantastic to hear them nonetheless. Look at these guys just waddling their way up the Penguin Highway. It's really amazing. All right, let's see if there's any more groups that are coming out. Oh, lovely, a nice group of penguins here. Just got a beautiful backdrop of some running water just behind them. Oh, that's a beautiful shot. That should be a postcard right there. Simply fantastic. These penguins live in one of the most beautiful places in the whole world. I might be biased. I live in this area too, but Phillip Island is simply amazing. Beautiful animals, beautiful weather. Sometimes can be a bit rainy and a bit cold, but I happen to be a fan of the cold, just like these penguins. Now, some of the behavior you see on these penguins, you see a lot of shaking of the heads, you see a lot of preening of the feathers, penguins rubbing their feathers all over, penguins rubbing their beaks all over their feathers, barreling through. Some of them, there must be a new group that's just decided to push their way through. But these guys are doing a lot of maintenance on their feathers. They have an oil gland just above the tail. They'll reach back, put the oil on their beak, and spread that oil all over their feathers. It helps keep them waterproof out on the ocean, which makes our penguins excellent swimmers.
So Stephen,
Oh, we just got another big group coming up. I missed this group, so we don't have a chance for you to count this number, but Rach just sent through a number of how many were in this group. Another big group.
so that is another big group. Stephen, did you have a guess on that one?
I'll have to go back and actually see. Let's see. I didn't actually hear what it was over the radio. Let me guess, 150?
Sort of close. It was 210.
I wasn't close at all. I guessed 150 and it was 210. Good thing I'm not counting tonight. Otherwise, the numbers would be all sorts of wrong. But that's just amazing.
Question that a lot of people are asking, same question we always get at this time of the night. How many penguins did we have last night?
Fantastic question. I usually have a chance to cover this in my introduction, but I got interrupted by the penguins coming a little bit early. Last night, the penguins started crossing the beach at 7:45, and we had a total of 2,439 penguins tonight. So 2,439 last night, which is still a really, really good number here at the point. Um, any number over 2,000 is just a fantastic night. Whoa, and I think Rachel just said we had shearwaters.
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. So I'm going to try and scan across the sky. We might get lucky and spot a special bird. So this time of year is a very special time of year on Phillip Island. We have the short-tailed shearwaters coming home. Now, we call Australia their home because they have their babies here in Australia. They are a migratory bird. They've flown all the way from Alaska to have their babies here in Australia. Ooh, I zoomed in a bit too far there. You can see the little dots flying up in the sky, just in the distance. It's really hard to make it out. I'm sorry, the camera's having a hard time getting them into the focus. But if you can see those tiny little dots, I'll try and zoom in, see if I can get it any better. Oh, it's really hard to see in the poor light. But roughly 200,000 shearwaters call this Summerlands Peninsula their home, which is really special. So that's just 200,000 roughly on our peninsula here. On the Phillip Island, in total, there's roughly just over 1 million short-tailed shearwaters that call this island their home, and they're coming back to have babies. So it's really exciting time. Not only are the penguins coming home to have babies, but the shearwaters are back from Alaska, ready to have some babies soon. They're not having their babies right now. They're starting up their courtship. They're going to be getting into their partnerships. They'll find a breeding partner if they're lucky enough. And then they'll go on a honeymoon. The shearwaters have a fantastic honeymoon because they go off and get really fat in the ocean, trying to put on a bunch of weight before they have their offspring. So it's pretty special right now. The rangers, we just love seeing the shearwaters coming home. For all of you who live in Victoria, they're also known as the mutton birds here. Wonderful. And another massive group coming out here, walking up the little stream that's going into the ocean. Now, sometimes when the stream is going this strong, we'll actually see some of the eels up at Swan Lake making their way down to the ocean. I can't promise we'll see any tonight, but if you see something slithering in the water that doesn't look like a penguin, it might be one of our eels heading back to the ocean. Wow, that is an absolute massive group of penguins. It never gets old watching this. I've been working here for just over 5 years now, and I love watching these penguins coming home every single night. But people often ask us, what's the most amount of penguins we've had? What's the fewest amount of penguins we've had? The fewest amount of penguins I've ever seen here was 147 that came up in one night. So less than an entire hour that we saw the penguins coming out. There were less penguins than we see in this one group in front of us right now. So it was a pretty quiet night, that even, but the biggest number of penguins we've ever had was over 4,000. It was 4,398, I believe is the number, which is another massive evening. So the numbers do vary quite a bit from night to night, which is why we count them. Wow, look at those guys just braving those rapids. It's got to be a pretty strong current going through there. Strong for a little penguin. They're getting buffeted around, but if they see water, they're going to try and swim through it. Just amazing. Wouldn't be too surprised if we saw penguins getting swept down those rapids. All it takes is a loose footing, a bit of slip and slide, and you're back down on the beach. They're definitely slipping and sliding over those slippery rocks there.
So Stephen, I've got a question from Leanne. Do penguins get married?
Do penguins get married? Well, it's like a Vegas wedding, I guess. It's not so much a permanent marriage that our penguins have. They'll partner up for the breeding season and they'll stay together for the breeding season, doing their best attempt at raising the babies of that season together. They might stay together for a few years, but on average, somewhere between 20% to 50% of our penguins have a divorce every year. So they don't generally stay together that long. We might see penguins together for 2 or 3 years at a time. We have seen penguins stay together for longer than that. We've also seen penguins stay together for a single season and then find a new partner. And usually has to do with how successful they are at raising their babies. So if, for example, a couple of penguins get together, they raise their babies to fat, happy, healthy penguins, they're likely to stay together next year. Not a guarantee, but it's a bit more of a trend. They'll stay together because that husband was good value. He managed to feed their babies and raise them up into adulthood, so they had a good chance at life. But if they happen to lose their babies, maybe due to predation or not enough food, the wife thinks that was an absolutely rubbish partner to have. She's going to get a divorce. She's going to find another man in another burrow somewhere else. And she's going to find greener pastures elsewhere. And it is the lady's choice. The ladies get to choose to stay with a man, or they get to choose to leave them. But fellas, it's not so bad being a boy penguin because they get to keep the house. Very ooh, there's a nice group of penguins here. It's very good from both sides. It's a very amicable divorce. No fighting over the offspring because they make sure they're out of the house before they have that divorce. Bit of a traffic jam happening up here on one of our penguin roads. I might hop over to the Penguin Highway because that is a massive group down there. Look at that. There's so many penguins, I'd have a hard time counting them. Just a stream of penguins going up there. It's rush hour here on the Penguin Highway. Never know if a traffic jam's going to happen. One penguin's pulled over to the side of the road, but he's not going to stop there for long. He might get trampled if they stay there for too long. All right, these guys are just fantastic. You can see that group up that was up on the hill behind these ones waddling their way home. I'm going to go back to the beach. Let's see if there's more. Ooh, there's more penguins there. Wonderful. Let's zoom in on these penguins. There's a lot of interesting behavior that they have when they're here on these rocks. I love to call these the resting rocks. The penguins have just had a long day out on the ocean. Maybe they've been out there for days, even a week, couple of weeks. We're never sure how long they've spent on the water. If they have chicks right now, they're not fleeing too long on the ocean. They've got to feed those babies as often as they can. And they might be having a rest at the pub before they go home because when they get home, those chicks are going to be hungry. And when our penguins have babies, they always have the two eggs, which means that when the eggs hatch, there's a couple of siblings fighting for food, and the strongest of the two will be fed first, and they'll get fed the most. So what baby penguins learn to do very early on is as soon as mom or dad come home, they attack them, and they bite them, and they start getting really aggressive, trying to show mom or dad that they are the strongest and they deserve the most food, which means that once these babies turn into teenagers, roughly the size of these adult penguins, sometimes even bigger than these adult penguins, those attacks get a little more serious. And some of these parents of the adult teenagers, they might be a little bit hesitant. They're bracing themselves for those attacks because when they get home and they have two angry teenagers demanding food, they are going to get buffeted. They're going to get pushed around. It can look quite violent. Some people actually think that the babies are attacking mom and dad, maybe going to hurt them. But don't worry, they're not trying to hurt them. They're just trying to show them that they are strong and they deserve a lot of food.
So on that note, Stephen, what do the when do the penguin chicks leave home, and what do they do?
Great question. So when do our penguin chicks leave home? Roughly, so when they hatch, it's roughly 2 months after they hatch that they'll leave home. We say around 9 weeks of age, just over 2 months of age. Being nature, it's never a guarantee. Some of our chicks, they leave as early as 7 or 8 weeks if they're quick developers. Some of our chicks hang around for 12 weeks. So they might be the ones who lays about in mom and dad's house a little bit too long, imposing on them before they get kicked out. And when they leave, they generally leave for a long time. They have a bit of a gap year out in the ocean before they come back to land here on Phillip Island. And they usually head over east. And they might stay around there for a while, but when they want to have babies, when they're ready for the breeding season, once they're old enough, they will come back almost always to Phillip Island. Just a few penguins here or there will find another colony somewhere else. Spread that genetic diversity around. I believe it's roughly 1 in 500 penguins emigrates to a new colony. Very, very rough estimate there. Lots of preening happening here, which is fantastic. I'm going to go back to the beach and see if any more penguins are coming out down there. Wow, poor Rachel has had a hard time counting these penguins. And there's even another group. Wonderful. Look at those guys, braving those rapids as well. Now, this is a very rare occurrence. It's the first time I've ever seen such a significant amount of water rushing down over the rocks. And it's just so much fun seeing the penguins determinedly trying to stay in the water. They've never had to deal with this probably before in their lives. It's very rare that penguins get to swim in a river. They're usually out in the ocean, and all they have to fight is the tide or the ocean currents out there, which are a bit less chaotic than these rapids right here.
So Stephen, we have had a couple of people notice that there was a penguin that looked like it was limping on the highway. What do we do to help our penguins?
So some of you have some eagle eyes. You noticed a penguin that might have been limping on our penguin highway, that top screen on the top right-hand corner. Now, we do have rangers who are trained in animal handling and how to handle penguins. And we'll put our injured penguins, if they're severely injured, into a bit of a transportation box and take them to our wildlife clinic. And in our wildlife clinic, we have some staff on hand who can help nurture these penguins back to health. But we try not to take too many penguins there because these are wild animals, and a hospital or a wildlife clinic is a very stressful place for a wild animal. So if it's something as simple as a sprained ankle, a rolled ankle, penguins can heal from that naturally. It's not a life-threatening injury. There's no sense in taking a penguin to the hospital for a very minor injury. But when they have something a bit more significant, maybe if a penguin's bleeding, they've been cut, or maybe they've had some entanglements, maybe they've been trapped up in a fishing line that they've found out in the ocean. We have to unwind that fishing line and it's cut into them a little bit. Then we'll definitely take them to our penguin hospital. We'll take care of them, make sure the wounds don't get infected, make sure they're fat and happy and healthy before we release them back into the wild. And some of the major threats for our penguins is actually marine debris. And it's a pretty bad problem, not only for our penguins, but also our short-tailed shearwaters that you saw flying in earlier, because roughly 90% of all seabirds on this planet have marine debris in their bellies, have plastic in their bellies today. So of all those shearwaters that you saw flying past, those maybe 200,000 shearwaters that we have here, 9 out of 10 of them have plastic in their bellies. And there's something you could do at home to help reduce the amount of plastic in our ocean. It has to be a bit sensible with your single-use plastic at home. And in particular, I want to draw your attention to balloons. Now here I have a punctured balloon that we found out on our beaches. And you can see the balloons popped. There was a helium balloon. They went up into the sky. Somebody released them into the air. I thought, that's pretty. It's gone to heaven. But no, it ended up in our ocean. And these long nylon strings, they stay out in our waters, and they're very easy to wrap around a penguin, and they don't break. So unfortunately, we do see penguins from time to time that are wrapped up in fishing line, wrapped up in balloon ribbons. So you can do us a favor, instead of blowing balloons, instead of having balloons at a party or events, try blowing bubbles instead. Everybody loves having bubbles. When you're outdoors, they're a very fun thing to do. Kids love running around and popping. I've yet to meet an adult who also dislikes popping bubbles. So maybe instead of balloons, try bubbles instead. You might save a penguin's life. And here at the Penguin Parade, we also have the wildlife clinic next door. So any penguins that do get injured do end up in our wildlife clinic as long as we're able to see them. And if you want to help our penguins at the wildlife clinic, you can donate to our Penguin Foundation, our charity organization, because they help fund the wildlife clinic. They do such amazing work helping not only our penguins, but other seabirds as well. That can go to our wildlife clinic, albatrosses, petrels, whatever may happen. We actually have had some other species of penguins make guest appearances here on the Phillip Island. We had a Fiordland penguin, was it a year ago, 2 years ago? who made a guest appearance. They're from New Zealand. Got a little bit lost ending up in Australia because this is not their home turf. But we fattened them up, and hopefully they're still doing all right after they got released back into the wild. And you can do your part in helping out with these penguins too at home just by clicking that link below. So we only have a few minutes left tonight. So get those last questions in. I think we have time for one, at most two more questions this evening. So make sure you get your questions in quickly, and hopefully we'll be able to answer them. And if not, put them on Facebook. We'll answer them over the next 24 hours. I'm sure Sammy on her last night is desperately trying to get as many answers as she can. Any questions, Dee?
Not a question, but we've got a reminder for our viewers that might want to tune in tomorrow night.
That's right. So tomorrow night, T is going to be here with Sky doing the Penguin Live TV. And we have some music happening, some live music streaming after the Penguin event, I think. And after you tune into the live Penguin TV, you can click another link and watch Felix from the Can Empire, Alice Scott, and the Orb Weavers will all be doing some live music for us as well. And we're going to have a guest appearance from Ross, who is our data analyst here at the Penguin Parade. And he has my dream job. He started working here as a Penguin Parade Ranger, just like I did. And then he found a job working with the drone cameras. So he gets to go out into the field, fly these really, really amazingly expensive drones around, taking snapshots of the colony. At 14 years old, that would have been my absolute dream job. It's probably what I desired more than anything else in the world, is have a job flying little robot helicopters around. So you'll be able to talk to him, ask your questions to him, bit of a Q&A session with him. He knows a lot about what we do here at the nature parks. It'll be an absolutely fantastic evening. And hopefully there'll be lots of penguins as well. All right, T, give me one last question. I'm sure we've got one more.
One last question. How do we count the penguins, and have we ever thought of using technology to do it?
Well, that is a question you need to ask Ross, but how do we count our penguins is the beginning of that question. So we have two rangers tonight, and we have both Rachel Ong and Rachel Ong and Linda counting the penguins. I'm just going to scan over the beach here. Sorry if you get a little motion sick. Down that end of the beach, we have two rangers who are counting the penguins, one in the building over there, one on the stands. They're watching all of the penguins coming home through binoculars, and they're counting how many penguins are in each group. So when Rachel Long said that there was 150 odd penguins in the first group and 210 in the second group, she wrote down those numbers and added those into the total numbers, and we add up the groups by the end of the night. Now, can we use technology to count our penguins? We sure could. Technology is expensive, and it doesn't last very well here on Phillip Island, because if you've ever been to Phillip Island, you know it rains a lot, and water and technology don't really mix. So getting it to work night after night consistently is not such a possible feat for us here. But really, we like to keep it old school because we've been counting the penguins this way since 1968. And for all you young scientists out there back at home, when you're doing science, it's good to be consistent. So we don't want to change the way we count our penguins, because we've been using people with binoculars writing down the penguins coming across the beach for 50 minutes for a long time, for 50 odd years. And if we're changing the way we count, it does some funny things to our data, because it's no longer a consistent way of measuring how we're counting the penguins. It would be possible to change it, and who knows, maybe in the future we will. But for now, we're really happy keeping it old school, keeping it traditional. It's a lot more fun, and it's a lot more engaging for us rangers as well, having that hands-on experience getting to count the penguins. But these penguins, you can see they're going home. They're swimming on their way home. It's time for them to get home and feed their chicks. And it's time for us rangers as well to head home and have our dinners, because it's getting a bit late and we're getting a bit hungry as well.
One last thing, Stephen.
Yep.
Just want to say happy Vet Nurses Day to everybody.
That's right. I can't believe I forgot that. But happy Vet Nurses Out Day to all of our veterinary nurses. Hope you had a wonderful day. I hope you got spoiled rotten because you take care of our pets and we absolutely love you. And there's quite a few vet nurses that come out and help us at the Penguin Parade from time to time as well. And we can't thank you enough. So big shout out to all the vet nurses out there. Stuff you guys do is fantastic. So we do wish you all a wonderful evening, and we're going to sign off for the night. So take care. Bye bye.
Thank you.